History of the coral reef ecosystem change recorded in Tuvalu coral annual bands. Various corals of all colors and shapes in a beautiful coral reef. Some corals are rocky massive, while others have extended branches. Many kinds of fishes and creatures live around them, making a coral reef diverse and rich. Boring into this massive coral from above as a round column. After taking it to laboratory for study, and you can see the stripes of annual rings inside. The density of the coral skeleton changes with the seasons, creating annual rings. Corals are very long-lived, so you can see the annual rings going back 100 or even several hundred years from the top you take them. The annual rings are like time capsules containing various information. If the annual rings are continuous, we can tell how old the coral is by counting the rings. In this way, we can create a chronological calendar of the past. In 2009, we had coral boring survey on Fongafale Island in Funafti Atoll, the capital of Tuvalu in the South Pacific. Because there are not any long-term records about Tuvalu coral reef environment, we get permission to dig it for research purpose. After boring coral core, we examined its annual rings. The coral was born around 1940, grew while forming annual rings, and was dug up by us in March 2009. During the 1970s and 1990s, the coral stopped growing. After that, the coral restarted growing again, but black bands are visible along annual rings. Looking at this coral chronology, let's take a look back at the history of Tuvalu and see what has happened. Around 1940, there was the World War II in the Pacific. The current runway in Tuvalu was built by the US military at that time. Tuvalu became independent in 1978. In the 1980s, many Tuvaluan people went to Nauru to work in phosphate mining. But later, after finishing their work on Nauru, everyone returned to Tuvalu. Between the 1970s and 2000, Tuvalu's population grew very large. At the same time, we can see black bands in the annual rings. The red line above also shows the population growth of Tuvalu. The black bands is shown below in more detailed, magnified view. We found that the black part of the rings is present from October of the year to February of the following year. Analysis of these black materials revealed organic matter and various metals. These materials are not originally found in coral reefs. Where did it come from? Well, it comes from the lives of the people who live on the island. Waste and domestic sewage from daily life on the island flows into the lagoon. The red circles and triangles indicate metals and organic materials that enter the lagoon directly or enter the groundwater and flow into the lagoon. This increases the amount of organic matter in the lagoon and makes it rich in nutrients. This affects the coral and coral reef creatures that live here. If there is too much nutrients, the coral will gradually weaken and algae will grow in its place. Organic matter becomes food for bacteria, which decompose it. Bacterial decomposition is a process that uses oxygen. The more bacteria there are, the more oxygen is exhausted and the more anoxic in the environment becomes. In areas where there is an excess of organic matter, the oxygen in the lagoon gradually diminishes, damaging the corals and foraminifera. On Fongafale Island, corals have gradually disappeared from the areas facing the populated city and are rarely seen in the lagoon. Instead, there is now a forest of large brown algae, sargassum. This is a real photo image of coral annual rings taken on Fongafale Island. As you can see, every year since the 1990s, black bands have appeared in the annual rings. At the same time, all the branching corals around these massive corals were dying. The coral reef has been completely shifted to algae by excess organics entering the lagoon. Coral reef islands such as Tuvalu Atoll are composed of skeletons and shells from coral reef creatures, coral sands, and foraminifera. Coral act as a shield to reduce the energy of waves from the open ocean, and they also build islands by sedimentation gravel that have broken down into sand. Therefore, it is very important for islands that corals and foraminifera live in the lagoon in a healthy way. The key is the environment of the lagoon, including the water quality and temperature that are suitable for coral to live. However, there is a problem of waste and domestic sewage from daily life on Fongafale Island. It flows out from here into the lagoon and has a big impact on the coral reefs. If we don't clean up the ocean, the islands will become smaller. Healthy corals are also very important for resilience against climate change and sea level rising.